I'm Natalie Webster, and this is Chat with Nat, and it is also Life Coach Friday with Annette Walters from Relo Women. So we get to chat this week about friendships, making friends. Is it difficult to make friends? How many friends do you really need? Are you holding on to friendships that you shouldn't? So we're gonna tackle the whole topic of friendship today. Welcome, Annette Walters.
Thank you so much, Natalie. I always appreciate being here.
Yes. Now, this is a really interesting topic. I mean, I feel like they're all interesting, but this one specifically, because it's something that I think is near to both our hearts, because we're both transplants. We've both moved a multitude of times. So we know what it's like to be the new person, whether it's at a school or in a community or even at a job. So I can't wait to dig into this and hear what you have to say about this topic.
It's one of those things that when you live someplace for a long time, it's something that just doesn't come up. People kind of move in and out of our lives periodically. But as we go through these seasons as adults, we always find those seasons where something has shifted and we're like, "Wait, I'm disconnected. I used to have a lot of friends. What kind of happened here?" And we're in that season where we need to reconnect. One of the misnomers is that it's so much easier to make friends as kids as opposed to as adults, and that while it looks that way on the surface, it is actually a function of how we live life as to how it works. So, I always like to tell people, the reason why you think it was easier as a kid is because you had all of these shared experiences and all this time you spent together, which are the two real keys to making friends. As adults, we are just scattered. And so we expect it to happen over maybe a same like calendar month or a semester or something like that. But we really need to spend the equivalent amount of time together in order to start that connection process. And so I work with a lot of clients on reframing how we think about things because there's so much in life that we want to do, especially as adults, and we need to be intentional about it. And it can happen, and it actually happens a little more easily as adults because we actually can find people who are like us or who like doing the things that we like to do because we have the powers of as adults to do it, whereas as kids it was just kind of, well, whoever showed up, and that's the thing.
But we can drive now. So you're saying we can be a little choosier about our friendships because when we're kids, it's kind of whoever's in your neighborhood. But as an
Hmm.
adult, our world expands because you can make friends at work, you can make friends through your children's activities. So
Hmm.
if I'm hearing you right, you're kind of saying it actually, in a way, should be easier for us because
Hmm.
we have more options.
We just need to be told that we do have options. Because one of the things that a lot of us, and I hear it a lot, is that, it's so hard to make friends as an adult. Where do I find them? How do I even know if anybody else wants to be friends? Well, if you've ever done a search out on Facebook, especially in I belong to a number of community moms groups, and you'll have somebody reach out going, "Hey, I've got this brand new baby and I'm feeling isolated. I'm just looking to make some mommy friends." About 73 comments later, you've got all of these people who are in the same boat who just want to connect. They want to um, just not be isolated and alone anymore. What's so interesting about that place where we feel so isolated and alone is that it's like nobody else is going through this, and yet there are so many other people who are just looking for those connections. Sometimes a simple conversation where somebody will just smile at you. And then other people do want to talk about, the cosmos and the most interesting thing they saw out on Nova this last weekend. But, it's up to us to really decide, which conversation or what kind of connection do we want today?
What
When
is
you go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say when someone is the new person in a community, they just moved into a community. I did that a year ago when I moved, and I have since made, let's see, I made one new friend in my community. I've met a few other people. Is there kind of, what would you say the approach or mindset that is helpful when you're moving into a new community? And, it can be a little intimidating or overwhelming because other people have been there, especially if it's an established community. Is there kind of a way of framing it or looking at it where it can be more, where it can be easier to make friends? Or is it really what you're saying? It's just as simple as changing our mindset that it's difficult in the first place.
Hmm. Well, let's back up just a little bit and let's talk about that phrase. It's difficult to make friends.
Hmm.
I have a lot of people who will argue with me about, well, let me prove to you why it is so difficult. And what I come back to a lot with my clients is, okay, you can argue that with me, but how is thinking that, how is defending that helping you get down the road? How is that helping you to be in that place where you can even recognize somebody who would like or needs a new friend or a new connection? How do you show up if you're, even if you wander into the local women's group, if you wander in thinking it's really difficult to make friends, I hope it happens, but I'm not expecting it. How are you showing up? What are the other people in the room reading about you? Um, the most difficult thing that we walk through is usually what we put in our own minds. And so,
Hmm.
even though my clients will argue and prove, work to find proof and all of that, one of the things that we talk about is how those thoughts produce results like having difficulty to find friends. Now, I'm not talking about, you know, um, positivity manifestations and things
Hmm.
like that. I'm just talking about putting yourself in the place where it you're open to it, where you can
Sure.
see options and things like that. So, if we use the example of, walking into a Rotary Club meeting or around me, we've got a fantastic women's club that does all sorts of charity work that I like. When, you know, when you walk into a place like that, if you walk in to it with a different mindset, you know, I hate to use the word mindset because it's a little overused and the definition of it is kind of all over the place. But
Hmm.
when you walk in with the intention of perhaps curiosity, what am I going to learn here? I wonder what these people are all about. I'm here to participate in, well, my local town has a juried art fair and that they raise charity money at. I wonder where I can volunteer here, that'll really make a difference for their charity event. When we go in with intentions to be curious or to serve and really in a place where we want to learn, that's where we actually give ourselves the opportunity to find people who we would like to go further with to maybe have a cup of coffee, who would like to go see the immersive Van Gogh that's going all over the country now, or something like that. But we have to get to that point, and if we go in thinking that this is hard, that's what we get. And
That makes a
chances
lot
are
of
we'll
sense.
hit speed bumps that really we're installing,
Hmm.
even though we say this is the other place that we want to go.
Yeah, so we
Does
kind
that
of get
make
in
sense?
our own way with it. Yeah, because we've pre-decided that it's hard to make friends, and then that becomes our reality. Molly's
Mhm.
chiming in and she says, being friendly brings on friendship. I must say, I make a new friend pretty much every day. Part of why this is has to do with having zero shame in my game. And that is completely true about her.
I
So
love
that,
that.
yeah, that's kind of along the lines of what you're saying.
Molly, will you post one more time and tell me what your definition of friendship is? Because this
Ooh.
this I'm sure is fascinating. because everybody defines it a little bit differently. But obviously, the way that Molly is defining it, the fact that she believes that she finds a new friend every day, and I'm sure
Hmm.
she does,
Yeah,
you know,
she
it
really
all
does.
has to do with her expectation and how she defines it. Sometimes we come up with these definitions ourselves, and sometimes we borrow them from other people and they
Mm.
work for us. And whenever you find these things, it's a good practice just to try them on, not to blindly take them, kind of abdicating responsibility, but to try these thoughts on and think, does this work for me? Does this ring true? So you have to see if it's true for you or not, because otherwise your brain will double down and it fights you quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
You were talking too about in and it's kind of in alignment with what defines a friendship or how you define a friendship. What
mhm.
about I've seen this sometimes. I've seen relationships or friendships where you hear the term frenemies, where they've been friends for so long because they've been friends since maybe high school or middle school or even elementary school, and they're still friends to this day. But when you speak to one of them or even both of them, you can tell there's actually not a lot of affinity and affection going on there. There's kind of some stress, but there's this, well, so and so has been my friend forever. So despite the fact that, we actually don't get along or I feel not so great after I see that person, we still have to be friends. So is it
Isn't
possible
that
for us?
interesting?
Yeah, and I've seen that where people hold on to a long-term friendship for no apparent reason other than because they've been friends for a long time.
Mhm.
Which, if it were a healthy relationship and it were mutually still beneficial, there was a give and take and you're able to exchange ideas and really have what I would quantify as, a healthy friendship. If you don't have that, but you're still holding on to those people in your life, do you think it's possible that that actually can prevent you from making new friends? Because it's kind of like that, like attracts like, right?
Mhm.
So if you're looking to have friendships that share common interests that are really positive and you want to be involved in your community and you want to get out there, and you have this one friend that you've had forever, but they're kind of a bummer, you know, or just going in a different direction. Can that have effect can that have an effect on our new friendships?
It absolutely does. And you touch on 3 points. You touch on, the first is that badge of honor. The second is the time, and the third is how it influences any potential friendships going forward. The first thing is a badge of honor. I mean, we always celebrate, that couple that's been together 65 years, like it's an anomaly, and I guess sometimes it is. And so, we celebrate these things. And so, when we have friends, especially friends that we have had for a very long time, we get to the point where we really just keep them because of that badge of honor. New friends, we're kind of constantly evaluating. We're kind of constantly deciding if we're still committed to this or not. And but in the context of the badge of honor, it's like, oh well, I made that decision a long time ago, kind of like, the sanctity of marriage, or whatever it is. Well, I made a commitment and I'm going to stick with this.
Mhm.
Well, that's a problem, because ultimately, especially when it goes negative, like you were saying, it actually hinders our ability to be us, because in those cases, because there is pain involved, we don't necessarily show up as ourselves or are our full selves when we want to engage the world in other ways.
Mm.
With that, we spend time not only with that person, doing whatever we do, but then time on the back end, reevaluating, maybe ruminating, why am I still here? Or a lot of us who are fixers, we'll go, well, how can I make this better next time? And it comes sometimes from an altruistic place, but it's just not part of potentially what that relationship is. Isn't because we're so fixated on that badge of honor and that commitment, we don't actually open ourselves up to the potential of having those conversations of we need to change this or something. And
Mm,
then finally it's also the thoughts that we have around what kind of friends we could have. So if we've had this friend who we feel bad about leaving, do we have the ability to have friends who we actually feel good about, who inspire us and encourage us? And it's all about belief. And when we practice something, it comes so naturally. Maybe this is all I get.
mhm.
And even though we try to do something different, it'll still kind of cloud the anything that's potential or new. Especially if the last person goes, "Why would you want to go and do that? That sounds dumb." You know, you
Yeah,
go,
yeah,
"Oh, maybe I don't want to. Well, maybe I shouldn't." Type of a
sure.
thing.
That makes a lot of
So, what does
sense.
Molly say?
So she says, in answer to your question, and you had asked her, how would you define friendship? She says, oh, good question. I relate. Tell stories, listen, smile, laugh, meet people where they're at, and poof, pals. Being of service, like you mentioned, is key. It happens in stores, restaurants, pretty much everywhere. True friends, who I actually hang out with, may have started out exactly that same way.
Hmm. Yeah, because she goes in with that servant's heart, with that desire to smile and laugh and tell her stories and to see, well, who bites on this? Who kind of, comes back and relates to me and encourages me so that I can do the same within them potentially so that they can tell their stories because
Hmm.
it's always best when we smile and laugh together. And now, Molly seems like an extrovert, and that's really good for some people. And for me, that was one of the things that I did a lot of while I lived in Minnesota. Is that I loved to just wander around and smile at people because people would smile back there. But everybody has their definition of friendship, the one that works for them. I have met people who just love to shoot the BS, if you will, and not really talk about anything that is emotional or has consequences or things like that, and they just love it. That's how they kind of garner their energy. You see this a lot in and I don't want to stereotype, but I will. Guys and the sports, and and they get together to watch football games. What are they talking about? They're talking about the quarterback and the pass, and
Hmm.
they're not actually talking about feelings and relationships, which is really what I'd rather talk about. But,
Yeah, but that's how their
everybody does
friendships
it
look.
differently. Mhm,
Yeah.
because that's how their friendships look, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Hey, I'm all good with this," and no matter how much I go to my husband, "Don't you want, somebody you just wanna hang out with?" He's like, "Hey, I'm good the way I am," type of thing. So, he's like, "I got you." I'm like, "Ah, we need to talk." But anyway, I digress. So, but that's the thing is that everybody should have and realize that they have the ability to define friendship for themselves, all the different types, from maybe they just really, friend is knowing the Dan's name down at the dry cleaner, and you have that little
Hmm.
quick chat, and that he's got kids starting kindergarten or whatever, and then you have Molly, who you go and hang out with and tell stories and have just the greatest time.
Hmm. Absolutely. Marcus chimed in and he says, friends are those who see the best in the other person and want the best for them too. And I think that's
Hmm. Oh.
absolutely true and kind of goes along with what you were talking about in terms of, attracting, the friends that are right for you, those healthy relationships. Because and that's what I was mentioning earlier when I was kind of talking about the frenemy thing. You really find out, and for me, that's been my experience when it's kind of how somebody handles not just your hard times, but your triumphs as well.
Hmm.
Are they happy for you? Do they want the best for you? It's a give and a take. I really like how Marcus put it there. And that can happen on such a different multitude of levels. Like you were saying, like I have Todd at the pharmacy. I only see him there, but I know who he is. He knows who I am. And it's comforting and reassuring. It's the routine. It's the people I've gotten to know at my bank, at the post office as well. There's different types of friendships. Now, those would I necessarily walk in and start talking about some major life event? Actually, I probably would. If I'm being
Yes,
honest,
yes, you would.
I will tell anyone who stands still long enough more than they ever would want to know about me. So I think that's a way that where how I make friends is kind of starting out with often a bit of TMI because I'm not if something's really cool's going on with the weather, I love talking about it, but I love those in-depth unusual conversations as well. I think it's such a great way to get to know people is really kind of covering those topics that aren't so much surface topics. And it's not for
Mhm.
everybody.
No.
So there are different types. I can see that.
I really like, the way that Marcus says this too. It's an exchange of care and concern. And it happens at many different levels. It can happen with Todd there at the pharmacy, and then it also happens between you and I, because for those people who don't know, we have known each other since our kids were in first grade.
Yeah,
So
and they're
that's,
22 now.
yeah, they are 22. God, they're old. And so
They're old, we're not.
exactly. My mother used to say, initially I was lying about my age, but now I'm lying about yours. So, there you go. I may take that on. You know, one of the things that can make friendships, especially those initial stages, and in those places where we're in that place where we feel maybe isolated and alone, and we do want to find somebody new. We need to fill in a gap.
Mhm.
Is in my previous lives, as I've relocated many, many, many times. Um, I used TMI and it was a detriment.
Mm.
So I'm so appreciative that you bring this up because I had this idea back in the day that if I told you enough about me, that you would find something that you would like about me. And
Mm.
that way we could connect. Or you would say, "Oh, yeah, no, I used to live in fill in the blank here. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, I love to get Texas barbecue or take my kids to Valley Fair." If I tell you enough, then you'll like me.
Mhm.
And it doesn't actually work that way. And I've run a number of good people off that way. They're like, "God, just quit talking. Just stop." Um, and or I would go into those things that are problems and that sort of thing because it's life. We all have drama. We all have people in our life. We all have situations that happen. And some people are equipped to help us and some people are not equipped to help us. Sometimes our TMI just overwhelms. And no matter how much they tend to like us, it's hard for them, just kind of like that friend that you keep around for too long because it's
Mhm.
painful. I've been on that side where I've been the painful one.
Mhm. Yeah,
And
I can totally see that.
mhm. And so, a lot of making friends is understanding who we are. That's how come I asked Molly, kind of what her definition of friendship is, because if she
Mhm.
has a real clear definition, then she can work it. Like Marcus, he's looking for care and concern. Not only that, other people accept the care and concern that he extends, but I'm sure the care and concern that, he's looking for in other people to see if these are his people, if you will.
Mhm.
And it'll be the people that you can call at 3 a.m. in any sort of emergency, bring a shovel, and as well as the casual conversations in the coffee house or while you're working someplace. Hmm.
Yeah, there are
And
all different types. I'm definitely getting that. And I think in my experience and my takeaway from everything that you're saying is it really starts with knowing yourself, knowing what you're looking for in a friendship or relationship, where you want it to be There's, and I've talked about you with it, talked to you about this before. My friendships that go further than, just kind of a hello here and there, but the people that I really spend time with, those friendships, I've learned that I what helps that is communicating kind of like my needs and wants and finding out what theirs are, especially when it comes to scheduling. And one thing I like to tell new friends, people I'm going to be spending time with is, hey, if we make plans and you need to cancel, just let me know. You don't even need a reason. If you're just not feeling it that day, or there's something else that came up, that is like you have complete get out of jail free cards with me. um short of it being something, like if we had tickets somewhere, then I'd like advance warning to get someone else to go. But there's such freedom in that because I've appreciated that because life happens, and sometimes
Mhm.
you have a sick kid or something comes up or you're just not feeling it. You've had a super busy day and you kind of just want to, sit at home in a windowless room, which is
That
sometimes,
happens.
yeah, which is sometimes me. But when
Mhm.
I started communicating that to my friends, that's when I really got a deeper relationship. And I was kind of surprised to hear that they also appreciated that and wanted to provide the same for me so that I don't have to make excuses if we have coffee plans and I've just had a beat day or I just, don't want to get dressed that day and meet somewhere, that's all I need to say without an excuse. So I
Mhm.
think that communicating really, who you are, just really being yourself and you'll attract the, people who share commonalities with you. Would you say so?
Oh, I would definitely say so. And I've got a curiosity question for you because
Sure.
something obviously changed. There were times where you wouldn't communicate that, and then you decided, wait, I would really like to communicate this. I feel comfortable communicating this. Why? Why the change, and what's the purpose of it?
For me, the change was, it actually came in an odd way. A few, 3 years ago when I was really sick, when I contracted Lyme disease, I could not, physically, there's not a lot that I could keep up with. I pretty much most of my energy went into working. It was difficult to make plans because I could make plans, but I didn't know that day how I was going to be feeling. And I shared that with the people closest to me, and they were really understanding about it. And I didn't feel that stress anymore of, where you got to be somewhere at say 4 o'clock and it's 2 o'clock and you just know you're exhausted or just not feeling it, your best or wanting to be in a social environment and you start dreading it like, oh, why did I commit to this? I don't like that
Mhm.
feeling. And
Mhm.
I don't want anyone else to experience that feeling. And so I thought, you know what if I just told the truth, But what if I just set that bar, set that expectation early in the friendship? You never need to tell me. You never need to give me an excuse. You can just say, I'm not feeling it. Because turns out I wasn't alone in this, that a lot of people do something because they feel obligated to, not because they really want to do that activity or, and sometimes pushing through it because you want to have some fun and you do it and it works out great. But having the
Mhm.
freedom to say, hey, I'm not up to that today was amazing for me. And when I started getting feedback from my friends that they appreciated that as well. And interestingly, it didn't increase cancellations at all, but I feel like it's a gift when someone calls and goes, "You know what? I don't think I'm gonna do it today." I'm like, "Great, no problem." And they're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, no one's made to feel bad." And like I said, interestingly enough, I probably have less cancellations with that policy than I did prior because there's a freedom in it, and I think that builds a good friendship too.
You are so, so right. There are a couple of things that you've done here that remind me of a Marianne Williamson poem that basically what you've done by doing this is showing up as you. You're
Mm,
talking about telling the truth and helping them understand who you are and what you need. And the Marianne Williamson poem goes on, and near the end it says something to the effect of, and by showing up like this and showing your strength, you give permission to others to do the same. And with
Ah.
that, maybe that also is why, the cancellations may have decreased because, when they come, they're choosing to be there. That's the other benefit of this is that, when you do participate, you show up as you. If you show up under the pretext of, well, I have to be here, or, I'm just following through because it's a commitment, we show up in much different energy. We can't have the same kinds of lively conversations or
Mhm.
be as aware or present when we're not feeling it. And so in doing this, you have in turn given your sphere permission to do the same potentially in their lives, which, as you said, takes the pressure off and makes everything just so much lighter without that layer of,
Mhm.
you know, judgment, either self-judgment or judgment of others.
Yeah, you put it all right out there, and I liken it to, I feel when I'm making new friends and I just kinda make that clear up front, um, it almost like it's in real estate, when I'm showing a house, I'm gonna make sure I'm showing and making sure the client is aware of the things that are less desirable, or that need to be fixed. So kind of like, putting the not necessarily putting your best foot forward. Like, you want to know, I want to know what I'm dealing with on the front end. I don't want to be, at the closing table and find out, something, or have my buyer find out something they didn't know. And I think friendships are like that to a degree too. If you go in and you really are being yourself, it doesn't mean you're going to be friends with everyone, but you are way more likely to attract and maintain the friendships that you actually need or that you actually want. But it starts with being that friend, and that's
Mhm.
kind of what I tried to do with myself is I thought, what would I want? What qualities would I want in a friend? What things would I want a friend to do for me? And one of them was giving me a get out of jail free card when it came to if I needed to cancel something or change plans. For me, I need that flexibility with my life. And by
Mhm.
doing that, they started doing the same. And I thought that was so interesting. So I could not agree with you more. If we show up as ourselves, it's kind of a take it or leave it. It's you're not, I know that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Still can't figure out why. But
I ask
it's
questions
just,
like that too. Nobody tells
yeah,
me. Nobody
how can
tells
you
me.
possibly not like me? But it
I
happens.
do.
Yes. So but it's different people, different strokes and all that, different preferences.
Mhm.
So that makes a lot of sense and answers a lot of questions.
We started off the conversation earlier with frenemies and that badge of honor of keeping people for a very long time. One of the things to ask yourself, for anybody listening, that if you have a friend who you do feel kind of taxed by or things like that, be sure you do slow down and analyze, what am I getting out of this? Now, because you're staying friends, you're definitely getting something out of it. So I don't want to say that it is all negative, because we humans, we gravitate toward things that we get things out of, even when they're painful sometimes. And so just think to yourself, what am I getting out of this? And is this the way that I want to be? If you're able to be yourself and you get to be encouraged to be even more of yourself,
Mm.
you have found a special friend.
Yeah, that
And
makes sense. And you can tell, can't you, when it's not going well? It's kind of like dating. When
oh,
you're
yeah.
dating a new friend and getting to know them, you can tell when it's not going well and you're not jiving, and there's nothing wrong with that. That just may be someone who's more of an acquaintance then, but you don't need to force it either.
Mm-mm. No,
Yeah,
enjoy it for what it is rather than what you wished it would be and that
I
sort
love
of
that.
thing. So.
I love that. Thank you so much. That answers a lot of questions around friendship. And if you want to learn more about Annette Walters and what she does with whole life coaching, down below in the screen, you can go to her website. And on any page on the website, you can click on Let's Chat and you can actually schedule a complimentary time with her. You can also learn more about what she does. Um, Thank you so much. This is one I feel like we're going to kind of have to almost do again because there's so many different aspects of it too. Um,
Yeah, The next time I want to go through how friendships go through stages because that's fascinating and it was one of the key elements to helping me make and maintain friends once I
Mm.
learned it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Well, you hold tight and let Annette White take us off live. Everybody else, thanks for joining. And I'm going to end with some info on how you can follow Annette Walters and Real Women as well. And have a fabulous weekend, everyone.